Do you consent to being recorded, Mr. Jerry?
Fine. Fine, I'll just consent.
Mr. Comic Con, you're a bit of a big deal now, after
Kind of a
you
big
know,
deal.
another successful convention under your belt, it's just kind of I'm just here now, just doing the show by myself, and trying my best. On behalf of all of everyone here on Nerd the Roast, when I say we're very, very proud of you and we're so happy for your success.
Thank you very much.
There you go. I feel like I have to say that sometimes because sometimes some people might not realize I'm
I'm
actually
like,
taking
I'm
not.
like, what fucking success?
And like you're being a host of a fucking convention is more successful than any of us are at the minute, so
We shall see. We shall see.
we shall see. We shall see. Anyway, hello everybody. It's your old friends at Nerds of Roast, and welcome back to the Best of All Worlds podcast here on the channel, where we are going through the cosmos of Star Trek episodes to try and find the best one that's through all series ever made. What could possibly go wrong? I'm joined as ever by Captain Jerry Soul, who is taking command as ever on this voyage among the stars, and we're coming to the end of our current arc of episodes that we have entitled the spooky, the morbid, the dark, macabre arc, whichever one we want to call it. And obviously, because we do it this way, we always tend to switch to the next one on this sort of episode. So, this next one that we're doing, Jerry, kind of ticks both boxes of what we're doing for this current arc and the new one on the way. And delightfully enough, it's actually a new Trek, which has had mixed results, if depending on which series you're talking about. But according to this series, it ranks quite well. So why not then just continue on with the stuff that we like and continue with Strange New Worlds?
Bingo.
So exactly, yeah, because we're not doing Discovery, unless it's a hate watch. I'm being unfair there now, in fairness, but I am.
Well, no, we might hold on. We might do an arc where somebody cries a lot, and if that's the case, you can use every single episode of Discovery.
I think there was that one time where, like, Data cried, but he was trying to feel emotion,
Yes.
So we can, for balance, we can work that out. And Picard cried once. We did an episode where he cried. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
something. We tick that box anyway. But no, of course we're all very much joking here. So as we said, we are doing an episode of Strange New Worlds this time, and while we've already done one episode, which was A Quality of Mercy, the season finale of season one, delightfully, we're doing the episode before that, which is called All Those Who Wander. And a peek behind the curtain here is that because we obviously going to record this, like, say, a month or two in between episodes, Captain Soul often forgets where we plotted our next voyage to. He's asking for his heading, and he's shouting out random numbers, and I tell him what the episode is, and he goes, "Oh fuck, this is the scary one." What's his instant reaction?
Let's be perfectly honest. So obviously we're doing scary arc here. We're doing a horror arc, but let's be perfectly honest. This is the only episode that is truly scary. It really is.
Yes.
This to me, when I first watched this episode, and this is the thing about Stranger Worlds. I've only watched these episodes once, whereas previous tracks I've watched multiple times. I do like doing a rewatch of them. And when it comes to this, I remember watching it, and as soon as the episode was over, I was like, that is the closest to Alien that you're ever going to get in Star Trek. And it was, oof. Like I'm actually a little bit worried because obviously we're recording this. It's going out onto YouTube, and I'm a bit worried because I'm gonna be sitting there going, "Oh Jesus, fuck you, dirty bastard!" I have a feeling it's gonna be because I can't remember it. This is the thing. I've only watched it once, and I just had this intense feeling of watching it. And when I watched it afterwards, I was like, "That's Alien. That's Star Trek version of Alien," and I'm like, "That's scary."
Yeah,
that was scary. I was like, "Fucking hell!" Yeah.
I know exactly how you feel. I thought the exact same when I was watching it back as well, and it's just like, considering that, like, the majority of the like the great thing with Strange New Worlds overall, if we're to kind of really appraise the series as a whole, it's really embraced the episodic tradition of Star Trek, which I think is why we like it so much. Is that it
thankfully.
Yeah.
Thankfully, because I think that's what's been missing with the new track. I think to a lesser extent, Picard was actually quite good. So the first season was good. I thought second season was good, but it dipped it dipped below everyone's expectations because um, it was basically just a season on present day Earth. And
Yeah.
that's not what people wanted to see. They want to see spaceships. They want to see shit going down. So that's why season 3 was so much more popular because you had the original cast back. You had all this space stuff. You had all these new ships. You had all this stuff going on, and that was why it was good. But
Mhm.
this and then Discovery have kind of dipped down because it hasn't been episodic. It's just one long story.
Yeah.
I think the reason the likes of Lower Decks and Stranger Worlds have been popular because they're episodic. And
Yes.
I have to say now, Lower Decks has been an absolute delight to watch, and I'm actually quite pissed off that they're canceling it. After, not canceling it, they're just finishing it
It's
after
ending. Yeah.
season 5. I'm like, you bastards! You could have
No,
got
go back to season
could have
7.
got
That's
yeah.
traditions. Yeah.
You could have got 15 seasons out or 20 seasons out of easy because it's that popular.
Mm.
Because it is, even though it's a Star Trek show, it is an adult Star Trek show. It's not for kids.
Yeah.
And the fact as well is that when it comes to adult cartoons, they're extremely popular now. You only have
Hmm.
to look at the likes of not Star Wars. What am I talking about? South Park,
South Park. Yeah.
um,
Longevity.
American Dad,
Mm.
Family Guy, stuff like that, and how many years they've been going. Even to a certain extent, The Simpsons. Simpsons is, it's not really for kids. It is more of an adult themed show. So,
Yeah.
and the fact that they've now been going for 40 years or close to 40 years, which is insane. So you
Mm.
could have absolutely got more than 5 seasons out of Lower Decks, but unfortunately, it isn't to be.
Well, you never know. Things might change. I mean, we've been down this road before with Star Trek series being cancelled, and then they find themselves a new home on the likes of Netflix. So, who knows? There could be a prodigy like Resurrection with Lower Decks there, or again, they might just take a breather, do a Futurama, and come back in a few years' time. You never know.
Yeah,
But sure, look, like I said, we'll have a bit of Lower Decks love on different episodes of this series. In fact, we have already watched Lower Decks on this series. If you wanted
yeah.
to see how we felt about No Small Parts, but as you said about Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, it's a perfect embodiment of old but new. And I think this is a appropriate episode to talk about because what they've done now is really resurrect what the original series kind of like tried to make as a kind of like, oh no, it's a terrifying monster race called the Gorn, and it's just Dave in a fucking rubber fucking alligator outfit. And they really tried, but this is the difference with old but new is that they have really put a new stamp on it, a new taste on it. And we're going to jump into it right now, as much as Jerry is dreading it a little bit, but we're going to jump into it. So are you ready to go, Mr. Jerry Soul?
Yeah, hold on one second. Hold on.
Okay, perfect. I thought it was a nappy there you're getting there, but however,
That's already on.
no, that's already on. That's grand. Yeah, I didn't want
Yeah.
to. I didn't want to query your health. In a case, so yes, we are about to jump onto this episode, as you guys well know by now, if you haven't already. This is very much half watch along, half review. So if you want to watch along the episode with us, by all means, use your streaming device of choice and press play when we do, and you can get our live commentary as we watch the episode. If not, stick around, give us about 55 minutes on the clock, and then we'll jump into our trivia and then a review of the episode after that, because this is the best of all worlds. It's literally one half of each because we're very indecisive. So in that case, let's get going on 3, 2, 1, hit it. Always have to try to remember everyone has a different like engage phrase, which they definitely don't make any like qualms of saying, "Oh, we have to say a special phrase for this." It's like,
Like
go,
Jay may just use engage, didn't she?
yeah, pretty much, yeah,
And so did Cisco. Cisco used engage as well. So
yeah.
let's
But
just use fucking
Cisco,
engage.
Cisco backhanded people as he was doing it though. It was a very different energy.
Yeah, true.
You know, he was very sassy with it. He'd say engage and he'd purse this and find a way of
Yeah.
sabotaging somebody.
You know, I didn't think I was going to like this Spock.
Yeah.
But he really has. He really has grown on me. Really, really
Mm.
has.
I think Ethan Peck genuinely like. I think if you told me beforehand that there was going to be a better Spock than
Mm.
Zachary Quinto,
Mm.
I think I would have been laughed out of it. But he really
Yeah.
has blown him out of the water to the extent that Zachary Quinto has said, "No, he's Spock now. I'm done. I
Yeah.
cannot match this." Like, which is exceptional to even say that. Like it's
Yeah,
but I mean, I don't think it's that much of an exaggeration to say that like Pike and Spock were the highlights of Discovery season two, when
yeah,
that story was really, really struggling, was kind of like treading water a little bit, and just having them as a bit of a almost like the anchor to the series really, really helped.
mm,
Um, and certainly the fact that they've gotten their own show off the back of it, I think, is a testament to how well those two have done in the roles. And then they just supplemented with just some incredible new characters and old characters too. But
yeah,
again, new context, like they're like we know of the likes of number one and Mbenga and so forth, but they're clean slates in terms of story. You
yeah.
know, you can do whatever you want with it. And actually Pike to a certain degree is a clean slate as well, you'd argue. So you can do whatever you want with it.
I just keep looking at all the food that they have served here. I'm like, I'm fucking starving now.
Yeah, the fact that like Pike is just like the all round good guy, Christopher Pike, like cooking for the staff. It's like,
Mm.
you prick. Just use a replicator and stop lying to us.
They didn't
You
have
can't say
replicators,
that
Jonathan.
pastry.
At this point, they didn't have replicators.
I know. That's the fucking problem. Like this is the issue I'm having is like that pastry is too perfect for a captain to make. Where's the fucking ship chef? Where's Jonathan Frakes in disguise? That's what I want to know, Terry. The most unduke looking guy I've ever seen. It's like like by all accounts that he should be just called Sal. Like
So,
like he's the guy that cousin gives out about and the fucking bear, like. So we should also explain again because of like I said, we mentioned it was kind of like an episodic format to Strange New World. What they do have is a bit of connective tissue between episodes. So this one, while it's kind of featuring Uhura becoming get a kind of a promotion ish or party, whichever way you want to call it, it is mostly a Nguyen Singh episode because we mentioned they mentioned her kind of her backstory in a previous episode about her being a victim of a Gorn attack, and that basically explains her kind of her very terse and kind of individualist personality.
yeah.
So this is where we're at here at the moment. So a bit of context necessary, but again, they don't hammer it home in a sense where this is like it's like the whole season is about the Gorn or about Lan Noonien Singh. Big connective tissue between two episodes, and that's it. I'm upset that he doesn't have like a branded apron. Like there should be a little like arrowhead on the apron. I imagine Vulcans would be quite good at the housework. Very
Well,
methodical.
they'd have to get every single spot of dirt off. Yeah,
Hmm. I mean, I think DePaul already established that they're germaphobe, so that checks out.
yeah.
Also, Captain, do you have any clean dishcloths? This one is filthy. I think more mission briefings should be like this. You see, this is a nice little callback to how to how the Enterprise crew behaved in Archer's Day, because it did just have mission briefings around the dinner table.
Yeah.
So it's a nice little callback. What, bacon? Risky?
faith in our crew to get it done. We're pressing fix up. I'll oversee this one personally. Get the cadets out on last away missions, senior officers.
What could possibly go wrong?
As soon
What
as he
could
says
possibly
bring the
go wrong?
as soon as he says bring the cadets with us, I'm like, oh, they're all dead.
Yep, they're wearing red for a reason.
They have to go and not make me turn this car. Have your orders.
The fact that this point in time, so it's mid 22nd or 23rd century, mid 23rd
Yeah.
century. They knew what that meant. Don't make me
Yeah.
turn this car around. And in 100 years' time, when we've got the next generation, they haven't a fucking clue what that means.
Yeah,
They wouldn't have a notion.
change
It's
language,
completely gone. Completely gone.
Yeah. Like it's the same as anything else. Like it is the evolution of language. So like you can get away with a lot of colloquial stuff in this show that he can't really in say, as I said, next generation made a point of being very formal with their language, you know. Because they basically said, well, this is just the way everyone's gonna talk in the 24th century. That's why Discovery always annoys me to a certain degree, because there should be a way of a difference in how Discovery cast speaks and say the people from the 30th century. But it's all just weird like fucking millennial talk, and that kind of annoys me a bit.
Yeah.
God, Star Trek must be so happy the green screens are a thing. This is like let the guys in the fucking office deal with that. Let's just have some fake dust flying around and we'll just go from there.
Yeah.
Their number has no limit. Nope.
Do you love the George Kirk just for the crack is wearing aviators for no reason?
Like sons, anything.
I love the fact that no one else is like, we're grand, and she's walking around with the gun in front of her going, right, what's next? It's kind of like Nog from Impact Nor. He's holding the gun like, there's got to be enemies here somewhere.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
That's a problem. That's a bit of a problem. Snow doesn't do that to people unless it's caustic.
Fine.
This is I think this is the thing I like the most about Stranger Worlds, is that it stays true to the design of the original series, even the bridge, but it brings it to the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what needed. You couldn't go back to the same old sets that were from the 60s. That's ridiculous. Like, it really, really is. Let's move it forward. Let's make it more futuristic. What it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be 200 years in the future.
Yeah.
You know, like let's actually upgrade it to make it look like that. And that's what I love about it. I think when you look at the newer movies, as much as I like them, I think it went too far with it.
Yeah.
Whereas it didn't look like
everywhere.
It didn't look like the original series. Whereas this does just an upgraded version. Like the ship looks fantastic, the interior looks fantastic, everything, the uniforms, the whole fucking lot, everything looks great. And I'm like, that's how you do it. This is the perfect kind of reassimilation of that original series, and it's great. Like,
well, you have to illustrate your point again. I'd actually look at how Picard season 3 did when they recreated the Enterprise bridge, because that is a ship that would say there's a 25-year gap between the Enterprise D, the Galaxy like bridge being built, let's say, and then what the Titan A looks like in that. And there is a stark difference in the two, because again, the ships are built for different reasons in terms of Titan A and like different resources, and there's all stories behind that. But the Enterprise bridge is fucking decadent by comparison, whereas the bridges are, say, even like the Enterprise E is very fucking like it's back to basics in a sense. It's like we don't need a decadent.
It's more
bridge.
militaristic. When you look,
exactly.
The Enterprise D and a friend of the show, Stephen from Cos Challengers,
that's right.
He likes to call the Enterprise D a cruise ship, because that's essentially what it is.
Yeah,
it really wasn't. It's not a combat vessel. It's an exploratory cruise ship. It's huge. It's for dignitaries and things like that. So it's made to be opulent. It's made to be this larger than life thing. So it needs to look like it does. Whereas then you go to the Enterprise E and that's gone. It's militaristic. It, as you said, back to basics. It goes back to me to being the Enterprise A again. the type of
Yeah,
bridge. Even though it's
exactly.
bigger, it's the Enterprise A again. It's that type of bridge. And that's what the newer shows and the newer bridges are starting to look like. They're starting to bring that back into it.
Hmm.
And I love that. I really, really do love that. What I love the fact is that so many people don't like the Enterprise G.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why don't you like the Enterprise G? It's like, it looks like too much the Enterprise A. I'm like, well, it doesn't. Well,
Yeah.
okay, I get your meaning. The saucer section is everything else doesn't look like the Enterprise A, but
Mm.
I get your meaning. But everyone's like, oh, but that's such a small ship. You know, you can't have that as the flagship. Number one, just because it's called the Enterprise doesn't mean it's the flagship. That's number
That's
one.
very true. Yeah.
Number two, it's actually not as small as you think. If you look back at particular scenes from the latter season of Picard season 3, it's actually very close to one scene. It's very close to Sovereign class, and you can see
Yes.
the size difference, and it's minimal.
Mm.
Are you telling me that a ship that's the same size or just a little bit smaller than Sovereign class can't be an Enterprise? Oh, fuck off!
Mm. Like it's even that, but it's also kind of the like having a bigger ship doesn't mean it's good. Like
Exactly,
again, in the show, the Odyssey class has been discontinued.
because
Like
they're no good.
good,
They're
and they're
not fit
also
for
only
purpose.
built. They're only built for the evacuation procedure for Romulus. So that's the only reason they're built. You don't need a ship to put 2,000 people on it. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like you don't. And again, the Galaxy can fit more. So we
Mhm.
we, we know they're big ships as it is. As I said, if you're fighting a couple of wars like every now and then, do you really need like a whole lot of galaxies? Like, or do you need smaller scouter light cruises and stuff like that?
Yeah,
It's you build ships for what you need.
yeah.
That's the way of any fleet is in even in naval history, let alone in a hypothetical space situation.
Uh oh. Uh oh.
That's not good. That's not a number. Hmm. The music there is just,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the same bars as they use in the original series as well. It's very good.
I want to kill them. But that's reminding me of this game. Captain, after coming online, I have 2 lifetimes on deck 5. Human or whole. 1 human, the other unknown.
And Lon, Aurora, you're with me.
Again, I think we said it when we were talking about Impact Nor and how like to make a set kind of very effective. Like with the kind of a relative abundance of riches, and I say relative compared to like what kind of shoestrings they had to work with back in the syndicated days. It's very easy to make sets like this now. They're able to
Mm-hmm.
just to really put as maximum effort into it. So
Yeah,
again, our scoring now is going to be very different because of just the sheer amount of like capacity they can do now to make it look good. But
yeah.
again, confidence is
And
one thing.
this is the thing, though. This is essentially still the Enterprise set,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's just been dressed to make it look like it's a different ship.
yeah. It's
But
it's
you
Constitution class
look at
ship.
it, yeah, you look at it and go, that's not the same ship.
No, but that's good. That's because they like again they have enough more people there now to do like to be able to do continuity
Yeah.
and to make something look different. Do you remember the episode where Silence has lease? I think it was the one where Nagilum traps the Enterprise in his little laboratory. So like,
Yeah.
and then the sister ship Yamato appears, and like all the corridors are clear, empty. Like there's no difference between the Yamato and the Enterprise, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I think then like a couple of like I think it was a season later, then the Yamato does appear, and it's the Iconian episode, and the bridge module is a bit different. It's like that's the finer detail of it because Nagina doesn't give a fuck, doesn't know what
Yeah.
the Yamato is. Like he'd never seen that shit before. He's just gonna copy the Enterprise. So it's like, oh, you can just make it away with that one, lads. Well done. You know. This is also the difference, the jump in technology as well. Where like like in Deep Space Nine, or Odo turning into a liquid was like the height of fucking CGI. Whereas now like these actors now have to go, okay, pretend this is an alien. You're now talking to a broom with a green cloth, and we'll fix it in post. It's a very different. It's a slightly different skill set now, but
Well,
sure, the base is still the same.
that's certainly practical
Yeah.
effects there. That's not CGI.
Oh, it is. Yeah, that is definitely, yeah. I think there's certain cases where they have to basically talk to like just a random object, essentially talk
Yeah.
to the broom.
I can understand how difficult it would be to do that. You know, you
Yeah.
look at. I actually saw a video there recently of Ian McKellen when he was on the set of The Hobbit, and there was no one else around him except there was sticks of Martin Freeman's head and
Yeah.
all the other actors, and he couldn't do it, and he had a breakdown on the set. Like
Mm.
somebody who was as big and as good an actor as Ian McKellen couldn't do it because it was so difficult. So I
Yeah.
can only imagine how difficult it is for other people.
I suppose you can argue as well that the new generation, the next generation of actors are kind of used to it now. They're able to just be able
They
to just,
grew up with it. They grew up
Yeah.
with it, you know.
whereas with McKellen having like such a sexy background, he needs a reciprocation. He needs to talk
Yeah.
to someone and get the response that way.
The one thing I will say about this Spock is he's a little bit more smirky,
Yeah.
just ever so slightly. It's not in every scene, but every now and then he'll kind of have a little bit more of a smile. I'm like, no, that's not Spock. Now give it over. Give that over.
Yeah.
Don't remember the original Spock doing that, you know. But we let him away because he's so good.
Yeah, well, again, it's also like, again, the only point of reference for this show is the pilot of the Cage, where he is actively smiling and laughing with Pike. So, and even then, I remember they showed that in the Menagerie episode where like they show him smiling and laughing, and Kirk and McCoy just go, "The fuck?" It's like, why do you ever do that? Like,
Yeah.
So it's even that's even a point of contention in its own right, like, which is, I suppose, interesting.
Being alone. Your problem is exact opposite.
One thing I like about Chimera is the fact that this is a character that was brought in, a type of character or race that was brought in during Enterprise.
Yes,
This is not going back to the original series or Next Gen or Deep Space Nine. This is from Enterprise. I love the fact that it's from Enterprise.
Yeah, it's great. It's a nice, it's just a nice little bit of like, it's a great hat tip and a great tribute as well, because for a long time Enterprise was a bastard child and nobody wanted to acknowledge it, nobody wanted to touch it. And again, in the recent kind of like especially New Trek in particular have really embraced new Enterprise. Actually, they started with the movies, to be honest. The movies had a few hat tips to Archer and the NX-01 and stuff. So
Yeah.
So
now saying that now in the film, Simon Pegg killed Porto, so he can fuck off.
Yeah, well, I mean that's Simon Pegg for you, really, isn't it? You know, I'll be raising that with him when I see him in Comic-Con next week. I was like, you killed a beagle, Simon Pegg. How do you feel? Nothing. You're a heartless bastard. But yeah, like it's certainly the case where like I think Enterprise is one of those ones that actually kind of benefited from being on Netflix and people binge watching it and going,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, this is actually really good." You know, it was a victim of franchise burnout in the end.
Is he?
Enterprise to me was like the Enterprise D. It went before our time.
Yeah, it did, 100%.
Why did you stay quiet?
Janet?
You could have saved them.
Wrong. Harassing my daughter.
Beg your pardon? Oof. And that was I think that was the episode previous, I think, the Elysian Kingdom, or two previously.
I'm sure the ship is clean. Whatever happened outside seems to be the end of it.
Reported missing 2 years ago.
Let me understand. What are they going for?
Girl and the two aliens were both refugees from the breeding planet. The adult born only half a stadium's gravity, so whatever was born from this ship, they are most likely to live. Don't hit them. If you really want them, it can take one.
They're still around, but we can do a situation. They still alive there.
Have you noticed his hair just keeps getting bigger?
It's how he shows command. It's how his authority develops. It's like,
I'm not being emotional.
yeah. So I just checked. The Elysian Kingdom was the episode previous to this, which is a brilliant episode, and we really should review it at some point in this show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Before pain twists around inside, he has a chance to grow young.
No magic button you press, you just learn.
He just needs someone to help pursue.
See, I think in a way, it's a kind of advantage of having these episodes being slightly longer now than the regulation cuts of previous shows, because they have a lot of character development to be doing in these episodes. Like I'm thinking like the stuff they would have been able to do in like a traditional season, which would have been like 24 episodes. It's 24 by 40.
Yeah.
That's like what, 20 hours thereabouts. And now you're getting these guys to cut back to 10 hours, and you're still trying to develop an ensemble cast and tell stories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work to be doing, you know?
Uh-oh.
That's not meant to be like that. That I can tell you right now, I'm not an expert. I'm not an engineer, but that shouldn't be happening.
Nope.
No.
That's what Lieutenant do. Didn't you realize?
Me? Jumpy? Never. I'm just concerned.
What is this now? That's about right.
Also not good.
No. And
Yeah.
here come the alien bit.
Time for spooky shit.
How they're physical? Use the readings we took on before. Gonna run a quick simulation on it again.
I'd also give it like a fight. Okay. Like 2 meters, maybe, bit of social distancing, you know?
It's the fact that she leaves the cadet there on her own.
I know. It's like that's what we call survival instinct, Jerry.
Mhm.
Yeah, you just have a little sneak away.
Remember there?
The answer is no. Oh, bad. Yeah.
Yep.
You okay there? You hanging in there?
I'm fine. Yep.
Yeah, you good?
Of course I am. I turned my screen off.
Very good. Wise choice, sir.
Like that sound like so. It's obviously supposed to be like an alien type of episode, but then you've
Yes.
got the sound effects of a predator. I'm like, fucking hell, you bastards!
Yeah, it's really so many hat tips in one show, like.
Mm.
But at least it's done better like than some of the other shows have done it. I think like the one where the season 2 Discovery one where Dad doing this like awful fight scene in the fucking turbo lifts and it completely ruins the concept of a turbo lift. And then it reveals at the end as a Die Hard reference because fucking Burnham loses her boots at the end. It's like,
There's another Kaget gun,
yeah. But in fairness, he was a lieutenant this time, so you know.
and that happened.
Powerful fucking little babies, aren't they?
Yeah.
Careful. The
If
floor is going.
like
The floor is going.
you mentioned the music at the start there. It's almost Jaws like.
Jaws is what is immediately what's coming to mind there. Yeah.
Oh, Norris Chopper, be careful.
You have to survive the original series. Don't be stupid. Don't do anything stupid, foolish. Majel Barrett's waiting for you in the next generation.
You came out of her. I didn't see her. Look at her. 4 born attachments. I count 1 dead, that leaves 3. They'll mature soon and then fight for dominance. What do we do? What do we do? Scan for biosignature. I've hit enough people, but nothing underborn. I don't.
Yeah, not exactly in a leaving mood.
Yeah, they legged it. They legged it.
Yeah, because they're going to do that out of social awkwardness, aren't they? It's like, oh, is that your juggler? Oh, I'm so sorry. Whoops.
Gives her to go and shoots anything. Shoot anything that moves. But you shoot her. But you moved.
I'm just very literal with my instructions.
Nothing. I'm sorry, thought. Don't hate the cold. Now they have. We leave here, we die.
And now we have the flashbacks from the previous episodes when all this tragic backstory came up.
We know.
I would say actually, like when they kind of revealed her character and the name, like I thought it was a little bit of a kind of an interesting one to use Noonien Singh as the kind of as her kind of surname, and one would assume then it was a hook of like, okay, what is she? Is she this, or is she a descendant, or is she a fucking like mutant or whatever? And it was kind of refreshing. It was like, no, she is just like she just happens to have that name. Like it is essentially just like what would we like to have like a really unfortunate surname from history, you know? And that in and of itself makes her character quite interesting. And yet you have to argue that they haven't really pressed on it that much over the first two seasons.
What is that?
It's a good thing he has that great sense of smell then, huh?
Mhm.
My calculations, the ice still not satisfied. Yeah. It is not safe to reach.
It isn't safe inside the ship. Hey, these won't die this one.
Sam, you saw her. We can fight.
Yeah, you tell him, Mother Kirk.
Captain, the internal comms are back online. Open channel, all decks.
All hands, emergency protocol. Regroup and rendezvous in sick bay. Repeat, get to sick bay and watch your six.
Also, if you're a cadet, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
You need to make a run for it.
The Gorn's biological makeup renders him invisible to all of our sensors.
Genetic chameleon. That's how I missed them inside the book. Is there anything from this biostandard to move something track? Status, we don't even know what constitution. And according to this.
We knew he was called Buckley, so you know, clearly British.
The dust in the mouth likely expelled them.
Yes, it burns quite tremendously.
Okay. Blind.
That's target.
It's a quite good line.
Heard they have a second variant. Cannot sense it.
Impressive. Like their genetic coding. Note that another evolution in order to hunt the effective.
Impressive. You think this is impressive?
Really an observation.
He killed Duke right in front of him. Fuck, doesn't that hit you somewhere deep inside? No. Nothing. Just need to reach the other. Can you feel anything? Or even some heartless, pointy-eared computer? Hey!
Yes, but that's what we do is provoke the Vulcan, a race famously known for its aggression, pent up frustration.
I'm trying to tell us about that. Anything else? Means our mission is complete. Correct. Okay. Now let's get rid of these sworn. Lawn, tactical analysis.
The hatchlings have begun molting, but they aren't really mature. At this stage, younglings have an intense drive for alpha dominance. The two will be the strongest, smartest, and extremely hostile to each other.
That's weak spot. We can work together. That's our advantage.
No matter what we have to throw them out, we have no chance against one at all.
These young guns are too fast for us to hunt. We'll have to create a choke point.
We're going to highly intelligent, even at this stage. A simple trap won't work. How are we supposed to hunt them? We can't even track them. We make them come to us.
That is very logical.
Born can't resist aggressive behavior. They won't back down from a challenge, so we can use that to draw them out, put them down.
Great. Now we're bait.
We can use the environmental controls. Gorn avoid the cold. Force them to the areas we want.
This sounds like the start of the plan. All right? Let's get to work.
I found the little line there from Mbenga about like creating a choke point is a quite little interesting little nugget of his character there, considering it wasn't always a doctor. You know, he had an interesting backstory too, which they didn't even bother touching in season one at this stage. Season two was very much an Mbenga buzz on that one.
Mike. 2468 cents. I'll have them change that.
I think that's the whole point, is not to change it in case there's anything.
Good fools, if they will come along with us, we're okay. Let's do it.
If it succeeds, you and I will be trapped in here with Amy Gorn. And will not be the one to kill it. I will do what I must to protect the lives of this crew.
It's quite a shame we didn't get more of him, to be honest. It was really, really
Great
likable
character. Very
Yeah.
interesting character.
Hmm.
Game on.
Nah, nah.
You got one in a chance.
Again, very much the Predator tribute there with the thermal vision.
Mhm.
They are good.
Track and field, baby.
Get into the vent system. Spock, get into position.
Now, Spock, remember your training. Remember, like it's Ponfar. Get really fucking mad.
My audio sound like there are two born.
Boxing him in.
Spock, watch for the second board. It's easy.
I'm gonna need like 2 minutes now to disengage psycho mode.
And these two are finished, there'll be one left. Yeah. Put that down, we go. Hannah, I'm coming your way.
Spock is still having a moment to himself and his brain. Your challenge has been accepted.
Fucking grow quick, the fuckers, don't they?
Yes, they do. Him or hide. kind of ironic about like a race that is like perpetually furious. All you need to do is cool down.
Mm-hmm.
Soft. And look, a beautiful Gorn sculpture that we can put in Starfleet Command. See, net win. Well, now you ruined it. That could have been a collector's item, you know? But no.
It's dead.
And not the only one.
Not him there.
There's no accident on this.
No, quite.
Going to go outside now.
Little Captain Scott reference there. The real Captain Scott, that is.
Mm-hmm.
Body very well.
Spray. It's more than a venom. Have to reproduce. Captain, open the door.
I can't. I do not want anyone to try to stop me.
You can extract them.
We'll neutralize the growth process. Figure something out.
If we had more time, I'm sure you could. Too late. We all know what's coming.
Emery, you don't have to do this.
But Captain, my sacrifice saved the lives of those I care most about. For me, there is no other choice.
Illogical.
Long, prosper, my friend.
That one in particular hurt.
Leave you with one last piece of advice. Open yourself. Make a home for yourself amongst others, and you will find joy more often than sadness.
Never. Please.
Not with them. Good luck.
Oh, he's home. I really feel like the Enterprise just have these kind of like the little hazard lights that you would have for a recovery vehicle. Like, come on, surely that's translated to the mid 22nd century.
But if Hammer was here, he would remind us that this is a celebration. Exalt the fallen and commit them to the cosmos. Many were spoken to push the enemies to. Now it's all the children. Best engineer I've ever served with. I never told Hammer, but he reminded me of my dad. always pushing me to see things from a new perspective. Do better, be better. Nothing ever.
Ooh.
You think you like the
You can see why Vulcans don't tap into the angry side. It takes a long time for them to cool down.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm warning you, back off.
Again.
The thing I think a lot of people forget is the fact that he's half human. So it's going to be
Yes.
more difficult for him to control his emotions. Even back in the original series, we saw that. We saw it was difficult for him to control his emotions because he's half human. It's not because his Vulcan side is breaking down. It's because he's half fucking human.
Exactly. Yeah. You got two physiologies competing, like two different, essentially, totally different brain chemistries fighting off each other against each other. I forgot, like they've got like the different blood for fuck's sake, people. Like it's a lot going on in that body of his. Some would say he's got the best of both worlds, and some would say he has the worst of them, depending on who you ask. Especially his dad.
It's always a whiskey, isn't it? Always a whiskey.
None of that synthahol shite that you have to get to 200 years later.
like the precious space? You know, there's any chance she's still out there. I'd like to request a formal leave of absence. Decommission.
I'll square up the stuff. The law.
Chris. Thank you.
This episode makes it look like you're losing two of your main characters.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's what makes it so good because it's false. Obviously, Hemira is gone, but it makes it also look like it is La'an, isn't it?
La'an, yeah.
La'an. Makes it look like she's gone as well. So
yeah,
and then potentially losing Uhura.
You
know, so it seems like almost like a transition period. So this is what I'm talking about. Look at this here. Sorry, I don't mean to cut off what I was saying.
No, you're right.
Look at the panels there. You've got the old type buttons. But you've also got screens to make it look more futuristic. That's what I love about it. But it is going back to the original point there. It is very much a transition. Very much a transition. So very, very good.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think again, it's kind of illustrative of like in a weird way, it kind of feels more like the season finale than Equality of Mercy did. But Equality of Mercy was kind of wrapping up the A story of the season, which was mostly about Pike.
Yes, and that is still to this. That is still the main kind of the main kind of talking point
Yeah.
is I'm just looking at a fucking paint pot here. It very much still is the Pike thing, because we know that this is the thing about it. When it comes to Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, you didn't know how the entire show was going to end. We know how this is going to end. Not necessarily the entire show, but we know how Pike's arc ends.
Yeah, exactly.
We know how it ends. Now, are we going to continue on? And is the end of Strange New Worlds going to be when that happens to him and when Kirk takes over? Or are we going to get a season or two of Kirk as captain? I think that's an extremely big possibility that we will get an even one season of Kirk as captain. What I wouldn't like to see is, I wouldn't like to see them redo original series episodes. This show needs to completely stand on its own 2 feet, and have its own arcs and its own stories, and that's what they're doing here. I know they're bringing in the fact that Pike, we know what's going to happen to Pike. You can't change that. It's not going to be changed, but it's not. That wasn't like a main talking point from the original show. It was a couple of episodes, certainly, absolutely, but it wasn't the main talking point. Well, I wouldn't like to see that with this show. Certainly, by all means, have what happens to Pike happen, and Kirk take over, and then we have all the original cast, or some of not original cast, but the original characters. Well, like we seen from the original show is that it was very rarely did you see all those characters together.
Exactly,
Sometimes you had them all together. Some episodes it was like maybe Sulu was missing, or Chekhov was missing, or Scotty was missing. It's some, there's similarities to that. But yeah, I think this show is definitely the better of the. If it's a straight fight between Stranger Worlds and Discovery, this kicks the absolute bejesus out of Discovery. There are parts of Discovery I like. Yeah, there's parts of Discovery I like. Okay, at the end of the day, getting new Trek is a good thing. Whether everybody likes it or not is irrelevant. I think getting new Trek is a good thing. This brings it back to what we have loved within futuristic field and new feel, new characters, but also old characters, but with new actors, and it's been fantastic. And this one, to end this arc that we have, was the perfect one to end on, because it gives us new Trek, gives us an exciting episode to watch, an episode full of subplots and we have a lot to talk about here. This could potentially be a very high scoring episode.
Well, we had that with Quality Mercy, didn't we? Like but like I said, with the fact that like there is, in a way, it is a less is more principle with the new Trek, is that like, yes, there's less episodes overall, but there's a lot going on, and they are overall really, really solid episodes. There's very few episodes in New Trek, again, depending on which series you look at, that are absolute calamities and stinkers. But that's only because there's a lot more budget to go around. They have the actors, they have the resources, so it's easy. It is a higher ceiling for these episodes to achieve. But as I said, like, everything is so competently made nowadays that it's actually a bit more difficult to be remarkable. But as we said, with Quality Mercy, like, that was remarkable straight at the fucking gate, and the same with Lower Decks, remarkable straight at the gate. It's different when we're cherry picking the episode we want to watch, because there's so much more in the, shall we say, pre-Discovery than there is now, in a sense. So whereas we're being very selective with the new Trek now, and obviously we're going to pick the episodes that have interested us the most. So there's a natural kind of like, there's almost like a bias towards it, in a sense. We're like, it looks like we're kind of fanning the flames of like, oh, new Trek is better than anything else, but it's not that at all. It's that with the episodes we have are just really fucking good. We're just gonna pick the ones that we like. I mentioned the Elysian Kingdom there. That's on my radar for whenever we do make up arcs for the next time around, because I think that episode is phenomenal.
Episode.
Subspace Rhapsody is another one where, like, how do we even start quantifying that episode, which is absolutely objectively brilliant, but it's something that Star Trek has never done before. So again, these are all questions you have to ask. But certainly, to jump back on your point about the whole new Trek thing, is there's a couple of camps when it comes to the Star Trek fandom for me. There's the one that is always like, is comfortable with what they liked in previous years. So like I'm thinking like there's always like say a gaggle that like are dedicated original series one heads and never really liked the next generation until the next generation won them back, and that took a couple of seasons, let's be fair. And then anything new came around, there was always the joined with a bit of skepticism, like when DS9 came around, oh, you can't have Star Trek when it's on a central base. It needs to be a ship and needs to be aliens of all the aliens of the week, and it needs to have X, Y, and Z. And then suddenly won them back over by having fantastic characters, fantastic writing, and very, very good storylines. Voyager was kind of like an almost a return to the episodic format, but it was like opposite side of the galaxy, new aliens, new this, new, and more new. But again, the criticism was it's not the Enterprise. It's just another ship. It was like, yeah, well, fuck off. Like, I mean, what do you want? Like, do you want just want Enterprise C, D, F, G? What more do you need? And so everyone has their kind of like their skepticism going in. That's one camp. The other camp is like just open to anything and would want to see just whatever it is, whatever else is in Star Trek. Now, the downside of that is that literally anything served up is good. And that's a bit, I think that would be a bit too generous in a sense, where like, yes, you can have as much Star Trek as you want, but there's a difference between being faithful to the source material and faithful to what you are, to the whole point of Star Trek, and then just making a generic show and slapping Star Trek on it. Like I always said, I think with Discovery would be a fucking wonderful sci-fi show if it was just called Discovery. If it didn't have Star Trek attached to it, I think it actually would be a better show. But because Star Trek have already well established its kind of content from decades of use, and then suddenly you have this like just like people going like, I think I know this better, whereas most of the fan base goes, you really fucking don't, to be honest. And we appreciate, like I said, it's not taken away from the people who've done God's work on it. You've really have done your best with it. But like I said, there's a difference between like, especially starting off on the right foot is the one thing. And one thing that Discovery never did was establish a bedrock for its characters. Like the bridge crew is still anonymous to this to the end of season 5, and they're doing like redemption arcs for some of these people, and they're doing sign-offs where I was like, I don't know who these fucking lads are. Like, you never establish these ones. The first thing that Strange New Worlds did was, again, the 10 episodes they had, is it right, we need to establish Uhura, we need to establish number 1, we have to establish Hemmer, we have to establish, everyone's established within the first 4 episodes, and they crack on from there. That is efficient and very effective writing. That's a very good way of doing a show. That is the only way 100%. To do a show when you have 10 episodes to play with. And we'll get into that when we get to the scoring. But as I said, this one could fly under the radar here, so let's see how we get on. In the meantime, we have a couple of guest stars to play through because we've already seen the Constellation class to death at this stage of this series, so we don't need to do any special ships. So I'll fly through some of the guest actors that we had in this episode, and I think, again, much as the case with New Trek, they're all one and dones because they have not featured already in the show. So I'll start off with Carlos Albonos, who was the man behind the Buckley prosthetics, which you mentioned earlier in the show, Jerry, as well. So not much to his name, unfortunately. He is just the poor fucker that had to sit in the prosthetics for this one. So not quite sure whether he's featured in other works, but he has certainly featured as a blue guy who gets who sprays Gorn eggs. So that's a good start, isn't it? All things considered. I believe we've mentioned this fellow already, but we'll just take this box just in case. Andre Day Kim, who is now the new Lieutenant Kyle, or Chief Kyle now in this case, in this current continuity. Again, Lieutenant Kyle was already in the original series. He's played by a British actor, and in this time he's now played by Andre Day Kim. And he's featured in a couple of other shows as well, mostly in the Degrassi series. He's the main character. He's the character Winston Chu in that. So as I said, he's a new Lieutenant Kyle, and no doubt we'll see more of him as time goes on because we know Kyle lives to the original series. Next up then is Jessica Danaker, and she was the unfortunate cadet Chaya who who probably had the worst calibration you could think of. I think it's fair to say. I've had some bad calibrations in my day, Jerry, but I didn't get like my neck cut off by a baby dragon. So that's take that what you get, I suppose.
I suppose.
It could be worse, I suppose. Again, relatively new in her career. She would have been in a couple of independent movies and films, such as Fight, which is a Canadian production, in 2018, and a year after, which was Night Drive. which is a short film. So those are only works as of right now. But again, still early doors. This show was literally made a couple of years ago, so we're not going to criticize people on that. Next up then is Emma Ho, who played Oriana, as we mentioned already. So again, she's like, as you can tell, quite new to acting. In case it's not really seen, but funnily enough, actually, she's actually the twin sister of Ian Ho, who featured already in the series, the episode "Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach," and both of them are in The Expanse in the 5th season. So there you go.
Okay.
So there's still already a bit of some sci-fi experience to both of their names, which is great to see. And then moving on, then we have Jennifer Hui, who was only in it for a couple of moments, which is she was playing Ensign Christina, who was the comms officer on the bridge before Uhura. And yeah, she's been in a couple of TV movies such as Deadly Influencer, Salt and Pepper, and Design with Love. So again, these are all really, really new to acting. So their credits are very, very quick, which is why it's a very quick fire round this time in this episode. Next up, then we're going to go to, so we haven't. This is the second time this fellow has been in Strange New Worlds, playing the same character, but we may not get to Memento Mori in our run, so we'll mention him now. Cameron Roberts. He is the actor behind Manu Noonien Singh, which is Laan's dead brother. We see in flashbacks in this episode and the previous one, Memento Mori, which I think is the 3rd in the season. Could be wrong. But he features in both of them as Manu. So he is, I suppose, his most common work would be in the mystery series Bellevue. Again, a lot of these are Canadian actors. It's all in Toronto, so you'll see a lot of the Canadian works here. So he's reoccurring in Bellevue, and he's also in the other shows such as Creeped Out, Frontier, and the 100 as well. So he's featured in a couple of things, but his main role is in Bellevue. And then finally we leave it then, again, same story as last time with Manu. We have Ava Chung, who played the young Lan Noonien Singh in flashbacks, both in this episode and the one we mentioned earlier. And again, she's been in a couple of shows already. She's only at age 16. So she's been in The Expanse. She's been in a couple of episodes of Reacher. And she's also been in Odd Squad as well, along with a couple of TV movies, mostly Christmas gigs like Christmas Dance Reunion, Reindeer Games, and Christmas in Wolf Creek. And she's also been in Slumberland as well. So she's already had TV and film work already at a tender age of 16. So well done to her. But that's all of our guest stars, because again, all of them very, very new to this whole acting gig, and especially considering they're all Canadian, they're all kind of local catchment actors and stuff like that. So it's a pretty quick fire round of guest stars this time around, as opposed to having to guess how many times has this poor fucker won prosthetics over Star Trek. The answer is more than you really think. So, I can assure you, for our next few episodes, we'll be back to form with those ones. So let's get on then with the actual scoring of the episode. And again, if you guys have only watched this show for the first time here, please, by all means, we have loads of other episodes. Please watch them. We would love your business. But if you're not sure, we are going to judge the episode pretty much based on every category we can considerably judge an episode, and basically see if it scores high and does it rank with the episodes we've watched before. So, as ever, Jerry, we're going to start off with the plot of the episode. And what's really interesting with this one is that it kind of, I think the story beats are very kind of like, it's a very Star Trek episode in a sense where like ship stranded on planet, save ship and crew, off you go. So it starts off for in a way, I suppose in a way that you're expecting it to start off, and essentially we go, oh shit, Gorn. Is essentially all I have written in my notes here is, oh shit, Gorn. So I think overall it's a very simple premise. But I think my kind of overall review of this episode, it's a simple premise done exceptionally well.
Yes.
In a weird way, the weakest point of the episode is the initial hook, in the saying that, because first of all, let's be fair, this is kind of the sequel to the Memento Mori episodes that introduced Lan's kind of unfortunate backstory and further teased out that the Gorn are going to be a more prevalent role in Strange New Worlds than than it was in the original series. But it certainly was. It's a nice soft reboot for the Gorn overall, and it kind of wraps up a lot of like little stories that were told in between. So I think we'll be kind of dealing with those stories in different categories. But for now, I have the plot kind of in a comfy 7. Because like I said, I don't think it's a tremendous hook compared to say a Quality of Mercy and a couple of the other episodes in between, like the Elysian Kingdom I mentioned and a few others. It's a simple premise, and then it goes places from there. But I would like to hear your thoughts on that, Jerry.
I would agree with you there. The initial start to the episode, you don't really see everything else coming from the start. You know, you have Ahura, and she's obviously she's trying to make a decision, and she doesn't really know what she's doing. She's gone to Khmer for advice. She goes and sees that other guy get promoted, and
Yeah.
she's very conflicted, very very conflicted. So you don't really see what's about to happen, and then it just sidesteps from her, really does,
Yeah.
into the Laan or Laan, whatever.
Lan. Our accents are betraying us here, lads. Let's just be clear. We are Irish, and we tend to skip vowels anyway. So
yeah, so Lan.
Lan.
So Lan's Gorn story, and then it goes into the whole Alien arc. Then essentially, it's the film Alien. Very very good. As you said, it's a simple yet compelling episode. So yeah, I think I would agree with you there. I'd go with a 7. Absolutely, there are going to be categories where it's certainly going to be higher. In terms of scoring, though, I wouldn't go any higher than a 7. So yeah, 7 is a good score for this.
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, like again, this is the kind of the caveat of cherry picking our episodes. Like we're all picking episodes that are intriguing us in some way. Like I think that the weakest we've given a plot score has been like a 5, and that's because like it's generic zombie episode. It's like, yeah, well that's the point. Like it's you can't blame the episode for doing something goofy, kind of way.
Yeah.
But as I said, it tends to be the checks and balances come out in different categories. So speaking of setting, so again, kind of factoring in that with the joy of having less episodes to worry about and not as much of a budget to have a stretch over, the idea of a bottle show in New Trek is now long fucking gone. However, I still think they should do a bottle show just for shits and giggles because, shocking enough, like having a couple of people sitting in a room is great to flesh out characters. Maybe Discovery, you should have done that at some point. No, really, you shouldn't have. Like it would have been great. But overall setting, like I said, it's something that you can do now when you have extra resources to play with. But the question is, Jerry, so even with all of that, did it score high in your view?
Well, so what is the category here? It's the
setting. So it's like seeing the
sorry.
Seeing the set dressing and stuff like that.
Let's go back to what we talked about when we were first watching this episode, was the comparison we made between this and Empire Nor and Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine set in it was made in the mid-90s. Budgets weren't a huge thing, and they did what they could with what they had.
Yeah.
And even look at Year of Hell, another episode that we've done, and again they use the exact same sets but just dirtied them up. Now I think Year of Hell was a bit more extreme than Empire Nor. But they did what they could, and those, number one, fantastic episodes. Number two, the settings were absolutely fantastic because even though it's the exact same sets that you've seen 1,000 times before, it makes no difference because it makes it look different. Whereas this just brought it to a whole new level.
Yeah,
like this wasn't the Enterprise. This wasn't. It was a brand new ship with brand new sets. That's what it was made to look like. It wasn't. It was the exact same sets. It was the exact same sickbay, exact same bridge, exact same hallways. But my God, the level of detail that was put into this to make it look like a completely different ship was out of this world good. Like, absolutely perfectly done. It was from like we talked about when we watched Empire Nor, is that something as simple as making a room dark made it look different.
Yeah,
they used this obviously in this episode, but it was the combination of cargo pods and various different equipment and different stuff on the screens, because obviously even though it's technically not a Constitution class. It's very similar to a Constitution class. It is different. The specs are
Yeah.
different. The screens are going to be different. It's going to have a different name in them. It's all these little things brought together to make it look bigger, make it look better, but also to make it look as dark and as gloomy and as scary as possible. And that's essentially what the theme of this episode was, to make it scary, to make that kind of jump scare aspect of it, because there was, to my knowledge, it was at least 2 jump scares in that episode, which
Yeah.
they weren't, we knew they were coming because we'd seen the episode before, but they were good. So I think the setting was done very, very well. The fact that had you looked at those other episodes, so like Empire Nor, everything that was put into it, even the likes of the stasis pods for the Cardassian stuff, all stuff they have completely reused before. Whereas there was things put into this episode that you hadn't seen before. There was equipment, there were boxes, there were things that quintessentially was Star Trek. Absolutely. You'd never seen them before. They were different. And that's what made it very good. So this has to be, for me, it has to be scored high, because they put so much work and detail into making this look like that it wasn't a set. There was a brand spanking new set, and it was as simple as that. They weren't using the same sets, even though they have done. I would go as high as a 9.
9 was actually what I was thinking myself, because I think at this stage of like New Trek, again, I think we said this with actually the best way to describe it actually is with the other episode, Quality of Mercy. It is very, very, not to say it's very easy to be able to do this well, because you have the opportunity to do it. You don't have to rush through scenes to get them in the can, because you have like another fucking 3 or 4 weeks of shooting to do. You can take your time with these scenes, and you have people now whose job it is to dirty up a scene or to make it look bad, or continuity stuff like that. Like, there's so much now work put into it that it's good. It's effective for us now in that sense. What I find really refreshing though is the level of detail, because I think it's only actually been recently on Twitter, I noticed that people are making the point where like a lot of stuff, like the background like stuff, is now scaled back because people are watching on tablets and phones nowadays, so they put less effort into the overall background. I think someone like did like a side by side with like the Sopranos and I think it was the Sopranos or the West Wing. I think it was the West Wing actually, the West Wing and something like, say, I don't know, something like that's around nowadays. And it's only because like people just watch it on smaller screens now, so they're not seeing the finer details. Whereas in the West Wing, there's like a hat tip from like fucking like 2 seasons ago sitting on Martin Sheen's desk. Stuff like that's going on. And so not to say that that's good, bad, or indifferent. That's not what I'm saying here. But the sheer fact that there is so much detail here, it is the show is done as if it's still on a wide screen. It's still as if you're like in a fucking, if you're in like a movie screen, you're seeing it to the highest fidelity. It's not presuming that you're watching it on a phone. And if you're watching on a phone, fair enough, but like we watch it here on our own screens and we can appreciate the detail that they threw into it. What stops it from being a 10 is not doing something unique. And I think that's the difference now, is like when you were looking for a 10 in New Trek, it's something unique. Quality of Mercy got points in unique because it was a spin on a previous episode and an alternate history, but also the setting was done really, really well because it aped the things that previous episode had done, in the sense that they did what they call it kind of the submarine lighting in the original series, where the light, there was like a filter of light only on Kirk's like eyes and everything else was dark. And then in Strange New Worlds, they did the exact same thing, just because they could, and because they wanted to get you back in that same space. And I thought that's the level of detail that really gets you into the show. So yeah, I think 9 is a solid shout. Next up then is writing, and strong category for me again. I have to say, I think Strange New Worlds really is the best written show of New Trek personally. Prodigy is a dark horse, incidentally, on that one when it comes to the writing. And I think Lower Decks, and despite being a complete another piss take, still has some very strong character moments. But Strange New Worlds absolutely is strong, is top tier when it comes to writing. And this episode is actually quite a good example of why. With one blemish, the one issue, the one negative I had in this episode was the initial scene not clicking with the rest of the episode. It is just like, that feels like a kind of a bit of a tidy up with the rest of the season. Like it's a okay, we need to give her scene, so then she can, it's like a start to end kind of thing for her. Obviously it ties in with Hemmer dying and stuff like that, so it's not completely incongruous, but for the bulk for the body of the episode, it actually is just stitched on from a different episode, kind of way. That's my one negative. But overall, a lot of good character moments and flesh and continuing storylines. You know, this is what Stranger Worlds do really well. It is episodes are standalone. They're standalone events. It's not continuing on from point A to point B. And when they do, there's a healthy space in between. Like I mentioned there, that this episode is essentially sequel to Memento Mori, which was about Lan Noonien Singh, her origins, her backstory. But that's only one story in the entire season, and there's a 6 to 7 episode gap between them. So, and again, if you're watching it week to week, that's a 6 week gap. You forget that episode. You move on, and you do other fucking you do other shows in that point. So it's not a case of where like, okay, we're back to the story immediately. No, they kind of like they put it left on ice a little bit and they came back to it while also advancing Mbenga's story to a kind of like a natural, what I call an epilogue, as it were. And same way with Uhura, that kind of like sets her off then for what happens in season 2, and with Noonien Singh doing her own thing as well. So as you said, it kind of like it made the fate of a couple of people quite ambiguous, which is actually quite good. And it's the way business is done nowadays with TV shows. You need to give people a reason to watch again, and you need to give people a hook. You can't just guarantee that they're going to be tuning in next season regardless. You need to give them a reason to sit down and go again. So with all that in mind, and I think they kind of the show was paced quite well. I think overall I'm kind of flickering between an 8 or a 9 personally. What would you think, Jerry?
I would go with a 9 personally.
Okay.
And the reason I said it is I agree with every point you said there. The only blemish, and it's a very, very small blemish, was that initial scene, because you think this is going to be an Uhura centric episode, and it really wasn't. Sure, start and the middle and the end, fair enough, but the rest of it didn't have anything to do with Uhura really. But you've got all the little subplots, all the little things going on. You've got the Gorn stuff, you've got the Spock stuff, you've got the Doctor and still with his daughter stuff. Then you've got Uhura and Hemir. You're always going to have that looming ever so slightly in the background, the Pike stuff, and because he's looking at that situation. He's on that ship. He knows, right, this is a dangerous situation we're in. Well, you know what? I'm fine. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm fine. I'm not going to die here. It's fine. I'm absolutely fine. So that's always going to be looming ever so slightly in the background. But I thought overall the writing so good for this episode. It rewrote the Gorn in such a way that we knew originally the Gorn were made out to be this big nasty race.
Yeah.
And they've been made into something so much more now, because you see when they're born, and then as they're growing, you think these are literally just mindless but intelligent animals. Let's put them in the same context like Jurassic Park. Look at the Velociraptors, highly intelligent, but at the end of the day, still just animals. Whereas we know the Gorn aren't just animals. So it's like, how do we get the Gorn from bursting out of somebody's back or belly or chest and then growing up like a Velociraptor to piling in a starship and having fleets of ships? That's what makes it so interesting, because you didn't see that from the original Gorn. Like, even when you're playing something like Star Trek Online, and there are Gorn in Star Trek Online, but they're the old style Gorn. They've been kind of edited to make them look different, because obviously we're in a different age now. It's not the 1960s, so they do look different, bigger, stronger, more fierce and stuff like that. Again, pilot starships, but you don't see their initial beginnings like you do with this, and I think that's very, very interesting. I'm like, I really want to see the full life cycle now. I want to see how they go from this to being adults and having starships and piloting and engineering and stuff like that. It's going to be really, really interesting, because it leaves it wide open. And obviously we've seen there are more Gorn stuff to come, much more Gorn stuff to come, and bigger and better. And it's going to be, I think, I like the fact that this show is not a typical, let's use the Romulans, yet let's use the Klingons, let's use the Borg. This is a race that we've heard of, that we know about, but not that much about. And they are making them the big bad.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that we finally have something new. Like, even when you look at those newer movies that from the Kelvin timeline, We again went with, oh, it's the Romulans again.
Yeah.
It's Khan again, and it's Section 31. I'm like, oh, okay, great, yeah, brilliant. Oh, it's only the third one kind of had something different, something new. But then by then we were like, I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Whereas this, you're hooked. This is they threw the hook out there with the Gorn, and they're starting to bring it in, and you're just having a little nibble and a little nibble, and by the end of season 2, oh, you're on that fucking hook, and they ain't letting you go. That's how good, and the fact that it's starting with this, not just this episode, but it started this season, and this episode, the hook has been sent out. Because this is something we've never seen before. This is something new, but yet also familiar. So that's why the writing in this episode was so good. So I'll 100% go with a 9.
Yeah, I think you raised a good point there as well. It's kind of similar to how the Enterprise took the Andorans and did whatever they wanted with them, because they were a relatively blank slate from the original series. A great design and a very alien type alien, but they never actually established what the Andorans were like.
Yeah.
And the Andorans are very effective in a sense, because a lot of the kind of the undercurrent from the first season of Enterprise was that the humans and Vulcans are kind of at odds, particularly with Archer himself not particularly liking Vulcans, and he had a point. But the fact that Andorans were also mixed in there as well, because they have their own beef with the Vulcans, and we as like Star Trek fans were kind of trained to presume the Vulcans were on our side. In the Enterprise, they really fucking aren't.
No, it's not. It's not until season 4. Literally until season 4. Like, the Vulcans didn't even help Earth when the Xindi weapon came.
No,
it was the Andorians that it was Shroud that came and saved them. It was like, that, tell Archer he owes me 2 now. And it's like the Andorians are much more human-like than the Vulcans were.
They're more relatable.
They're emotional. They are wary of other people. They're not xenophobic, but they're certainly haters of Vulcans. But they're I love the fact that they're kind of a toned down. If this kind of sounds strange, they're a toned down version of the Klingons.
Yeah,
they're warlike, but they will be friends with you.
They're more paranoid and aggressive, is the way I
very paranoid, very paranoid, and I love that fact. But absolutely love them.
Indeed. So, next up then is acting, and as tradition, Jerry Soul, I cannot speak for this category. You are the expert in this field, as opposed to me, who would be on William Shatner levels of acting. So, talk us through here, and what caught your eye in this episode, anyway?
There was a couple, really. There was the scene of Uhura, where she's telling Kamir, don't do it, stay in, don't do it, and she gets very emotional. This is the one thing I'll say about New Trek, is that the emotional range of these characters is so much higher than the older Trek, and I'm even talking about like the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine. Like Deep Space Nine had some great range, but I think it's taken up a notch with these shows, especially Strange New Worlds. So you've got that. You've got Uhura's acting there, fantastic. You've got Lan, whatever fucking name is, Christine Chung. Just gonna say, she's fantastic in this episode, because she goes from being angry to being apprehensive to being downright scared, and being angry again, and again fantastic. But for me, and it's a continuing thing throughout this season and into the next season, Spock. Oh my god. It's Ethan Peck. That's Ethan Peck, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I thought he was good. When we saw him in Discovery, I thought he was good. It was a bit strange to look at Spock with a beard, but that's fine. But when you see him in Strange New Worlds, and that's what I said to you, is like, this is the Spock. This is the way Spock has always should have been portrayed.
Yeah.
Because the original Spock was far too Vulcan. He should have been a little tiny, and that's what I said to you when we were watching this. I said he's a bit more smirky than the original Spock, because that's exactly it. He's half human, so he needs to show the smallest glimmers of emotion. So Ethan Peck, especially in this episode, was fantastic, just absolutely fantastic. If I was to judge the acting by one person alone, and it was him, oh Jesus, he was so good, so good. The fact as well is that we are getting more Spock
Yeah.
not centric episodes, but we are getting more Spock really than anybody else because he is the main of the original characters.
Mm.
What in terms of the original characters from the show, we're not talking about just a pilot, but from the show, we've only got Uhura and we've got Spock so
Yeah.
far. That's all we've got so far. So obviously they are leaning heavily on Spock because Spock is an original character, original series season character. Uhura to a lesser extent. Then you've got Pike and number one. Those are minor. Even though they're the main characters in the show, they are minor compared to Spock because Spock is leading the way. So to see somebody of this caliber, he really knows the assignment when it comes to this character. He really, really does, and he gets it. So I have to mark this high. So this to me is a 9 to a 10. So I'm going to see what you think.
I see. I was kind of flickering to 8 or 9, so that actually kind of like averaged out quite well to 8 to 9 then, because as I said, I think with Star Trek has a really, really high standard of acting.
Yes.
Because when you're really and again, this is the kind of the downside of doing all series at one time, because these poor fuckers, the likes of Ethan Peck, the likes of Anson Mount, the likes of Chidi Rose Goody, has to compare to fucking Patrick Stewart and Avery Brooks and Armin Zimmerman and all these other phenomenal character actors. Like, how do you put you had to put like the guy who plays Hemmer in the same fucking like top trumps to Andrew Robinson, who waited until he had his prosthetics on before he realized, oh, I'm a pansexual character, I want to fuck everything inside. Like that's acting. That part of acting brain doesn't kick into anyone but Andrew Robinson. These are the kind of people you're up against, and that's really, really hard to compete with. But if you're just comparing to this episode, like, there was no bad acting performances really here. There was no time for it, in a sense. These are very, very tight shows, and there's so many executive producers, and there's so many people involved in the kind of the making of this proverbial cake, that in a way it's just at the point where, like, okay, if we touch it again, it's going to fall apart.
Yeah,
I'm looking at you, Discovery, and it's not the point of, like, say, okay, these characters are, as I said, they are human, but they're not 24th century human. They do have some level of, they still have a rawness to them. They still have something that's relatable to us watching it back.
Exactly.
In the same way where, like, like God, like Jesus, like, again, because I'm watching DS9 back recently, like, poor fucking Chief O'Brien. Like, he would be crying like Michael Burnham every fucking episode if it was New Trek, because that guy goes through the fucking ringer.
He really, really does. He really does.
And for international viewers here, the take it from us, Irish men are trained not to cry. Just heavy Catholicism and just being told that's just not what we do. That's it's a genetic trait, if anything. So the fact that like he would go to the ringer in the same degree here, this is what we're coming up against. But again, we're perhaps comparing apples and oranges here to a certain degree, but I think the acting in this episode standalone is absolutely phenomenal, and they had to. There was so many emotional payoffs. They had to go through such a spectrum of like highs and lows, and they had to nail their marks, and they really, really did, I have to say. Again, what's missing from a 10 is parts like that one bit of masterclass, and I think Ethan Peck was very close to it.
So close.
Very close. Yeah. Okay, next up then is action, and for marking me off, actually, my notes here, I have this as a very quiet category considering the episodes. I think this was, for me, it's actually more to do with the tension than with the actual action. And again, we've done this before where, like, say, yeah, maybe it's a particularly quiet episode, but if they nail the tension really well, then that's half the battle. And again, we had this recently with Epoch Nor and a couple of the other kind of horror episodes we've had, where sometimes it's the lack of action that kind of gets you more.
Yeah.
And the pacing of it and so forth. So overall, I think, again, a fairly competent episode in that sense. Again, it's with the fact that you have so much you can do with the lighting, with the visuals, and with music, with the score nowadays. Again, we'll get to the score shortly. Holy shit. It's very easy to do tension in a sense. Yeah. But now it's trying to do something unique with that tension, unique with that action. I think the action scenes are very, very good, very coordinated, very competent. And the tension carried the episode quite well. So again, hard to judge it based on the new Trek here, but I'm going 7 to 8 personally for action.
I would agree with you there in terms of scoring. I will get to that in a second, but I understand what you say. There wasn't a lot of action. The action that was in it was good.
Yes,
absolutely good. The way I see it is, it's like that what you were saying, the tension. is
Yeah.
that you're expecting, and
Mm.
it's that low, it's the low music, and it's the scene where it's quiet, it's dark, they're looking around corners, they're doing things like this. And again, I have to just keep bringing it back to Alien. It has to be brought back to that, for the simple
Yeah.
fact is that that's what it felt like. It was, you were so tense, you were literally you were starting to tense up yourself, you're squeezing every muscle, you're like, oh, there's gonna be something fucking happening here.
Yeah.
Oh, we're okay, it's all right, it's all right. And then, oh, you blast, you jump, so it's so good. So I'm gonna go with an 8. I'll go with an 8 personally. This, I'll go with an 8, because even though there was only small amount, maybe 4 or 5 minutes of action in total, it was the tension through the whole episode. As soon as they arrived on the planet, you knew there was something wrong. Very, very good. Very, very good.
Yeah, definitely. So 8 is a fair score on that one. Next one then is effects. And again, this is a light and sound show for me, isn't it? Like it's one of those ones where like it's very easy to it's very easy to do this right, to do this well, and to do this competently when you have the time and you have the resources to do it. But we still have to give the episode its plaudits when it does. It's not something we can take for granted, because when something is missing from an episode, it's very, very noticeable. I think we might have had. I don't think we had this with A Quality of Mercy, because I think it kind of hit everything overall.
Oh yes, it did. Yeah.
I think there was one or two things. Oh, there was something really. It was the lad blowing up in the space station, and the flames were like really fucking like he was standing there and then suddenly fire. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake,
Yeah.
that's terrible. So that was really that was where like, come on lads, fuck's sake, come on, you can do better than this, and we know you can do better than this, and especially like again, this is an audiovisual thing, so the one thing I'd like to focus on then with effects is the Gorn. I think that's the best thing I can do here, because again, the lighting, the mood, the ambience, that's all a given now at this stage.
Yeah.
This is stuff to do out of the box. But let's look at the Gorn. So I think the Gorn have really, really benefited obviously from technology. That goes without saying. Even when they appeared in the Enterprise in the Mirror Universe, they look fucking phenomenal for the time. They still look quite rubbery and kind of like, straight out of a fucking PS2 game. But it was still an improvement on, as I mentioned, Dave in a rubber suit melting in a fucking Mojave desert. That is still an improvement. So the fact that like you can obviously go into so much detail with this is a given with the technology that you have at your disposal. Again, it's important to do it well. What I liked about the Gorn personally is that it really felt alien. Like, not like xenomorph alien, but what I'm talking about is like, out of all the things we've seen in Star Trek so far, Gorn seems like the biggest stretch of them all. Like, we haven't seen how Stranger Worlds would do the Tholians, for example, but the Tholians will be on the same. The Gorn is now the benchmark to try and hit something like the Tholians, because the Tholians look like they look like massive viruses with massive phage heads and little fucking spindly legs. So trying to pull that off is the barrier you need to reach now when it comes to the Tholians. So with the Gorn, they look like a genuine anger, like a genuine menace and threat to humanity, and that's what you wanted to do, because we are essentially we have a human Gorn conflict wrapped in all this. So naturally they need to look like they're going to kill us, and I don't know if you see what they did there. They fucking did. And it was only by virtue they were on a cold planet, otherwise they would have been fucked. So that's the thing. I think overall they really did that well, out of all things in this episode, because I think if it looked poor, if it looked bad, if it looked animatronic in any way, I think it would have completely emasculated the Gorn threat. So again, I'm going for an 8 or 9 on this one. I think they really hit their mark quite well on this.
I think the fact that we now have an updated Gorn, and the fact that we've actually seen in this episode, you actually see 2 to 3 different variations of them. So you've got the babies, as soon as they're hatched, they're fighting each other, and the graphics for that were fantastic. Then you've got the slightly older version that attacks, and then you've got this bigger one that attacks Laan in the shuttle bay. So I think all fantastically well done. I'm going to as well go with the practical effects of that other alien in it as well. Something
actual point
never
too.
seen it before. It was the fact that it wasn't just like a mask put on. It was like things moving up here, and there was here. Absolutely fantastic. I'm going to go with a 9 on this, because I think it was done very well. It's the fact that we've now gotten an updated version of a race that we didn't really know about, and it hasn't been shittily done. Like you look at a lot of Discovery, and their updates for races haven't been great. You know, the update for the Klingons. I'm sorry, I know some people like. I don't like it.
No,
I like
or-
the Klingons from Strange New World. They're my Klingons.
Yeah.
They're my Klingons, and I think they're fantastic. We won't get into the dancing, singing episode yet, but that's fine. But no, to me, the graphics, they've done this so well. The fact that, number one, they have the money to do it, but they've the combination of physical graphics, like the suits and stuff like that, and if you've got digital as well, really, really good. So definitely a 9.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, next up then is score and
11, fucking 11. Just simple. Right, I cannot put this in any simpler terms. This was one of the best scores. Probably. I'm going to take Picard out of this because I think the music from Picard is just perfect. And I do mean perfect. For this, when it comes to Discovery, when it comes to Strange New Worlds, even a lot of the original shows and stuff like that, the music has been good, but this was on a level never seen in a Star Trek episode before, because it brought the tension and it made it so much worse. And by worse, I mean better. And you're like, it was a combination of Alien. It was a combination of the kind of the attacks from the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park, and then it was the dun dun, and then it was dun dun, dun dun, and it was Jaws. And if the conductor or the writer of that music doesn't say that Jaws was an inspiration for him, he's a fucking liar, because
he is a total liar. Yeah,
absolute liar. But it was brilliant. Like I obviously I'm going to go with 10. I'm going to go with 10. But I believe there was a time that we did this show and you gave an extra point for something.
I didn't. No, we've had no.
And now you've never. Ah, fine.
No,
fine.
We've no.
Fine. Well, we'll just give this an 11.
I think we said an extra point is possible if we have a real tiebreaker for the top. I think that's the way we established it.
We don't have this here. But listen, there is no argument here. This is a 10. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and like I said, I think Jerry, as you said, that I think if you were to take the music out of it, I think a lot of the scenes lose its fizz, because then there is absolutely no threat or no danger here.
Yep.
The idea of a score is to amplify the scene. It is the uplift what's happening on screen, and it ties everything together, and that's exactly what the music in this episode does.
Yeah,
I think we took points off other episodes previously for not having a signature, or not having a kind of a little bit of authorship in the music.
Yeah, just it was generic Star Trek music. It would have been, and you're like, no, that didn't work. Like I've said this countless times, a score will either make or break an episode, a show, or a film. Had we not had the absolutely amazing music from Howard Shore in Lord of the Rings, it wouldn't have been as good. It just wouldn't have been. Without John Williams, Star Wars is not as good. So if you don't have good music, these films might still do good, but if you don't have good music, it just won't be the same. It just
doesn't
won't.
make
And without this,
same.
And this was that. This was good music.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking, like I said, I think what always judges me to like a 10. So if I'm even looking at some of the episodes that have a rank 10, when I'm looking through each episode, I can remember the music they use in each episode. So again, I'm looking at something like, say, Yesterday's Enterprise. I remember the swell of the orchestra when Picard is in the flames. In the pale moonlight, it's the shrillness of Cisco's speech. Best of both worlds, like that is just like it's the cliffhanger. Dun 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 bum 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 bum. No, that's never done before. Never done before and never done again. That is unique to that episode. Amok Time, famously. But every episode has that, kind of way. Each one, what's noticeable is that an episode that doesn't have a signature it really, really struggles. It's very hard to do. But I think for some of these episodes now, it is almost a prerequisite to be able to put your finishing touch on it. Again, we haven't done any Picard episodes yet, but especially with season 3, every episode has something unique to it because it knows from its previous that, like, especially for a short run series like this, every episode counts. It needs to matter to you,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what it does here. So absolutely nailed on. Next up then is scenes, and again, I find these categories hard to judge in New Trek, and I'll tell you why. Because I think I always use kind of a barometer of a scene is like, can you take this scene out of an episode, upload it onto YouTube, and it stands by on its own 2 feet? I can think of one scene in particular that does qualify as that, and then one episode that, and then any scenes that just basically don't fit in the episode. So this one is a take it and give it away. And so for the one, obviously we mentioned the opening scene doesn't fit with the rest of the episode. You can do without it essentially. But the scene I think that is easily copied and pasted off this episode is Hemmer's death scene. And it's not even that, it's a fact that, like, he is so dignified. He is so like when I'm gonna use Discovery as my kind of as my bad penny here again, but I'm thinking of the bridge crew, the bridge member who's in her android kind of shell. So she was in there since season 1, and she's already established she maybe got a line or two of dialogue in passing of, like, usual kind of, like, generic bridge officer, so on, fucking Klingons at the starboard bow captain, that sort of stuff. And then suddenly in the second season, they give her an episode onto herself. And she's been corrupted with the kind of the control virus, and she's been taken over, and all of her human memories are being rewiped. And it's like, oh, that's actually quite sad. If I actually knew who that was, that would be a really tragic scene. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, is you can't force the audience to care about a character, and that's the thing. That's the biggest challenge for me. I think if I was sitting down writing this show, I think having less time to play with to make you care about characters, that is the hardest challenge. Because especially, okay, granted, Picard has it easy because you already know the characters going into it. It's the ones that, like, the likes of Shaw and, like, some of the other periphery characters, the villains of the week, let's say, they're the ones you need to focus on writing wise. Everyone else knows the rest of the crew. They're fine. They're easy to deal with. So Strange New Worlds has a bit of a mixture there because people know about the likes of Spock and Uhura, but you have to pull back about 10 years and go from there. And then likewise, there's new people you want to try and establish immediately right at the gate, and Hemmer is one of them. But they do that over the season. He has these lovely little character moments with Uhura, with a few of the other kind of like kind of bridge crew, like over the run. Not massive ones, but Uhura was kind of like the main one because obviously that ties in with Uhura's character, which we'll get to in the next category. And I think to be able to make you care about that character for his death scene to be noteworthy, that's, I think, the real sign of good writing and the sign of a character well paid off. And I think the episode overall was missing a few more of those kind of signature scenes, but scenes that were all perfectly solid in of itself. Because again, there was a scene where Mbenga's little story got kind of like the green tick was certified in his story, Land's story was ticked off, and Uhura's story was ticked off, and all this sort of stuff. So 8 is what I'm kind of balancing on, really. I think it's figuring to be 7 or 8 because I'm kind of obviously accounting for the -1 I'm taking off for the opening scene. So it's between 7 or 8 for me, but closer to 8 for me.
I tell you what, I'll go with an 8 because number one, that Khmer scene is it's dignified, as you said. He goes out with dignity, with a smile on his face. He feels like he's back in Andoria. You have to remember, like, Khmer is blind, isn't he?
Yeah, he's blind.
He's blind. So this is a guy who, as soon as he goes outside, you can feel the cold and go, oh, I feel like I'm back home. But it's not only a dignified exit, it is an emotional one as well because of Uhura's reaction, everyone else's reaction. They don't want to lose Khmer. He's a valued member of the crew. He's a friend, and they don't want him to go. That's why they all try and make excuses. No, don't go. We'll stop the process, or we'll extract him, or we'll do this and do that. And he's like, don't have the time, lads. I know I'm a gunner. You don't have the time. We need to go, otherwise you're all dead. You know. So it's very, very good. I would say to a lesser extent as well, the scene where it's Spock in Nurse Chapel. where he hits the wall. He's more emotional. He grabs her arm. He knows he's losing control. It's a continuation from a previous episode. This arc with the nurse is actually very good. He doesn't want to explore his emotions, but he is. And he's unwittingly doing it. It's very good. But the Khmer absolutely. Khmer scene, that scene is fantastic. I'd go with an 8, absolutely, all day long.
Fair point, fair point. And then we move on then to character. Again, a lot of these, I think, Strange New Worlds in particular is a show that's dripping in character, in dripping in personality, and it really shows when we are watching these episodes back, because I feel like everyone who is actually part of the episode has something to do and they get something out of it. Refreshing enough, after watching Equality of Mercy already, that was a very Pike oriented. It was a 100% Pike. Let's be fair. This was the episode where everyone else who had a story in the season got their little bit of their conclusions, shall we say? So again, we had her being unsure of herself and not sure what her role is going to be in Starfleet. But that started off in the second episode, where she used her kind of like her, shall we say, her knowledge of harmonics to communicate with an alien. That was lovely. Great episode. Starts that arc off for herself. We mentioned Memento Mori, which was Lan Noonien Singh's episode, and again, same thing there. This is now the kind of the conclusion to that. Mbenga's episode literally was the one before this, which is Elysian Kingdom, and that really fucking hurts. It hurts to watch that back. But again, if we ever to do that, I would make the same case I did in the scene category. You said it made you care about this character because of how well he established up to that point. If it was anything, if the writing was strong, you wouldn't give a shit about his daughter in the transporter. You'd fucking delete file, move on, get on with yourself, kind of way. But they make you care about these characters. So in this episode, and then of course then we have Spock. He had his own episode where I think was it that season where they switched bodies, was it? I think it was. Yes. So that was the episode before that, and that was a fucking hilarious like little romp. But again, it comes with a kind of an actual point to it, in the sense where, like, okay, Spock's relationship with his future wife is shite, to be honest. It is very much an arranged marriage, and that's it. And there's absolutely no spark between them, and it's no surprise she ends up cheating on her in the end. So at the very least, like, so every one of those 4 stories going in gets something out of it, a resolution. And again, I'm thinking of from my own kind of personal experience, where like I've taken upon myself to do like 5 or 6 stories on the go, and thinking, okay, like at some point you're just tying knots and you're just doing this and doing that. But sometimes it's how you do it and when you do it is the most important bit. And I think for me overall, I think this episode really, really ticked all those boxes. It's gonna be high. I'm thinking 9.
I don't think I could really add to anything you just said there. The characters in the show are so much more fleshed out than other shows, and listen, when it comes to the likes of Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, they're the fleshing out of characters is second to none. There, they really are, because each character gets at least 10 individual episodes each. So this is how good it was. So it's, if you have to base it off of that, so New Trek is finally starting to get into its stride here, especially with Strange New Worlds, because they're fleshing them out so much better. The character development so much better. Characters that you know and love. You get to see the backstory. You get to see the starter out. It's so good. What did you say? A 9, was it?
9, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go a 9, because it was that good. It really is that good. Like, New Trek is just it really is starting to come into their own. And I definitely agree with you there with the likes of Prodigy. Like, it's a dark horse because you don't expect it from a cartoon, and they're so good. And it's just disappointing that Paramount didn't have the confidence to continue on with it. So it's now down to Netflix, and Netflix has released the already made season 2. The fact that Paramount didn't even release it makes no sense whatsoever. I don't get that at all. So I'm hoping that Netflix kind of see the wisdom and go, right, we'll give you another season. Go on, fuck it, we'll go with it. The likes of why we're loving Prodigy, why we're loving Lower Decks, and why we're loving Discovery, because there's Strange New Worlds. Because they're brilliant.
Yeah.
They really, really are. And they're giving us exactly what we want. The same but different. The same but new. And it's great. It really, really is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even on that point about Prodigy, like even those characters themselves are they're children in a sense. They're written. They're kind of like, meant to be children's characters in a sense. But like I
Yeah.
said, there's a layer upon where how they write, and it's kind of almost taking a kind of a note of how a lot of kind of children's shows are written in a sense where like it is inherently for kids. But if you're the dad in the room, you're watching as well, going, oh yeah, I know that character. Oh yeah, that's actually quite good. That's consistent and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. So it's really well done in that sense. But as I said, Netflix have a very very good record of that type of animated shows from like BoJack to fucking another show that's now dropped complete. Oh, Cyberpunk Edge Runners was the one I was thinking of. Fucking phenomenal work.
Mhm.
It got people playing that game again, which was a crock of shit to begin with. So it's obviously done something well there. So I think it's in safe hands in that regard. And final then is the consequences. So Jerry, considering I waffled on the last two scenes, I think you can take it away from here. What are the consequences of this episode?
Huge.
Mm,
I can't say any less than that. This is the first real proper introduction to the new Gorn.
yeah,
We have now seen that by the end of season 2, the Gorn are the biggest threat to the Federation than even the Klingons, the Romulans, or anything else out there. They're absolutely fantastically written now. The characters are going to be great. The idea that we've just met a race that are birthed the way they're birthed. So if they're that dangerous at just a couple of hours old, what are the adults like? And that to me is just going to be absolutely fantastic to not only watch but to kind of, I suppose, witness, because it's going to
yeah,
be fantastic. That's number one. Number two are the consequences of, like, so that's the main consequence of this, and it is huge. Then you've got the consequences of Spock and his emotions. You've got
mm,
La'an searching for the little girl's family and where that's going to bring her. You know, you've got the other smaller details like what is Uhura going to do? You know, we know ultimately she's going to stay on the Enterprise, but there's still that kind of doubt. Did she leave for a little while and come back? What the hell? We don't know what's going on. How is this actually going to play out? You've got, okay, consequences now. We no longer have a chief engineer. What's going to happen? Are we going to get a new one? Obviously, we see from the new season that there is a new one, and
yeah.
she's batshit crazy.
Jesus
And I
Christ.
do mean batshit crazy. The fact that the actor that plays her plays the grandmother from the Adams family, and you're like,
You're
this is-
already fucked from that point. Like, yeah,
this is mad shit, man. There's mad shit going on here. So the fact it's when you look at any episode that you judge it. So let's look at Pale Moonlight, and it was
Yeah.
our number one for so long, and the consequences from that were huge,
Mm,
but there were just one. It was just one. Now they were huge consequences. It brought the Romulans into the war and changed the war and for the Federation side, and ultimately they won. So absolutely huge consequences. One of the biggest. You look at Best of Both Worlds again. Consequences. They weren't loads of consequences in it. It was that main one of the Borg have nearly destroyed the Federation, and Picard's is very fucked up over it. When you look at Stranger Worlds, there is 4 or 5 different threads going at once.
mm,
But this is what I love about this, is that Discovery just went with the one thread and
Yeah.
the same recurring thing happening in every single episode. I'm like, I don't like this. This is for other shows. This isn't Star Trek. Whereas for Strange New Worlds, you get individual episodes that completely and utterly stand on their own, but yet you have these threads woven in between them. That's good writing. That's good, a good way of making a Star Trek show, and that's why the consequences of this particular episode leading on to so many different arcs, so many different episodes, and ultimately leading to the last episode of season 2, where we are getting potentially another war.
yeah.
Like, you know, how many fucking wars the Federation get into? It's mental.
A lot.
Another
as it
war,
turns out.
and
yeah,
as has been proven, when you bring conflict into it, the ratings go up, because at the end of the day, people like to see a fight. So
They
I
do.
think the consequences for this are high. Don't know I'd go as far as a 10, but I'd go an 8 to a 9.
Yeah, I think I think one of the consequences of the episode is kind of like immediately cancelled out with the fact that we like Lan comes back in the first season of the second series. Like she's back immediately. So I think that kind of takes a fizz off it a little bit to a certain degree. But I think obviously losing a main character is a big one just inherently.
Yeah.
And again, the fact that like as you said, the writing was efficient enough to be able to wrap up four different stories in one episode. That's an accomplishment, and it doesn't feel contrived. It's done in little pockets in between in throughout the episode in a sense. It's not just all like, and now let's turn to Mbenga and see what happens to him, and now let's turn to Laan. Like it's paced really really well. Yeah, I think nine personally. I think we're gonna go with a nine on that one because as I said, I think it didn't necessarily have a cataclysmic change in the timeline because that's not what this is about. But what it did was it was true to its own characters and true to its own story and was a natural conclusion to where it went, apart from Hammer's death, which was obviously a bit unexpected. But overall, even then in of itself is like because that came out of the blue so well and was like a genuine kind of kidney punch of a death. It was like, oh, I actually really wanted to see more of him. And that feeling of like Hammer, we hardly knew ye. That in of itself is a good consequence because it just goes to show you good writing, good means good characters means a worthwhile death in a sense.
Yeah.
And in case people are kind of shitting on in case people are kind of annoyed with shitting on Discovery, I'll use a different example: Tasha Yar.
Yeah.
Because Tasha Yar, we hardly knew you. We didn't have a chance to really get invested in your character, so the death had a huge ramification just for Star Trek overall. Because then, like everything got shuffled apart, and there was a big butterfly effect apart from that. But the actual death itself was very acrimonious, and it was only because really we had an opportunity to see Denise Crosby in Star Trek again that it kind of precipitated the likes of yesterday's Enterprise and then the Sela character becoming part of the show as well. So yeah, I think overall I think 9 is a good one for that. So Jerry Soul, have you done your maths? Do you know where this episode ranks?
I had done my maths up until category 4 and then I forgot.
Okay, right. Okay. So good to know anyway. So I will say first off that we don't have a new leader. Right, so let's not be panicking just yet, but we definitely have a cat amongst the pigeons, to say the least. So I'll start off with our top 10. So in 10th place now is Emissary from Deep Space Nine, and that's currently ranked at 84 out of 100. 9th place is The Thaw, 84.5 from Voyager. Joint 8th is Year of Hell from Voyager and Empok Nor, both at 85. And currently now 6th, or excuse me, should I say 7th in our list is All Those Who Wander at a score of 87 out of 100. So again, it's not really a surprise in a sense that a show this good has kind of won us over so much. Like we've had 2 entries in Strange New Worlds and both of them are in the top 10. Yeah. So that's pretty ominous for the rest of the Strange New Worlds we're going to be having on this series. So just to clarify, by the way, just in case anyone's kind of curious, it is actually 6th, not 7th. I beg your pardon, there's a slip of the tongue while I'm updating my numbers here. So it is 6th overall in our ranking of this series. So if that's not a sign of quality, I don't know what is, to be honest. Because oh my goodness, what an episode and what a show we have here. So yeah, just to confirm then, the top 5 still as is Amok Time from the original series, currently at 88 out of the 100, and then we're into the 90s club here. 4th place is Best of Both Worlds on a 90.5. In the Pale Moonlight of Deep Space Nine and The Quality of Mercy, the episode right after this from Strange New Worlds, both on 91. And Yesterday's Enterprise still clear at the moment with 95.5. The rest of the episodes we've reviewed are all up on screen as I've been talking. So if there's one in particular you've been looking forward to and waiting to be disappointed by, you should have just seen it scroll past you just there. But yeah, 6th best episode we've watched so far, Jerry. Does that sound about right to you?
It really does. I had it like I if I were to guess, I would have said a top 5. So 6th is very good, considering the fact that We have how many episodes have we done altogether? It's 40s.
35. We're on the
35.
road to 40, yeah.
35 episodes. So see, some of these are the most beloved episodes that we've watched. May not have ranked as high, but some of the beloved episodes that we've watched. 35 episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise, the original series, and now Strange New Worlds. And the fact that the new guys on the block have two episodes in the top 10 and one episode in the top 3. It's currently joint second.
Yeah,
this
joint
is how
second.
Good,
Exactly.
this is how good this show is. You know, at the end of the day, and it's not, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that we could get more in there, that more into the top 5 or into the top 10 or wherever it may be. Now, I still believe that I have the winning number. I have the winning episode. I still feel that I have it in the back pocket. I genuinely
I know. I know you believe it.
I will fight till the bitter end for this episode. I really, really will.
Which is appropriate considering the episode, to be honest.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, I've been trying to look at, other episodes that we could potentially watch and other things that we could do. There's so much to still watch. There's so much to still go through. Obviously, this show, our show, is not going to watch every single episode of Star Trek. It's just not going to, because there's too many. We would be here for years and years and years doing this, and that's not how we're doing it. We are having to try and cherry pick the best episodes. So I think we're on 35 now. We have a long way to go still. A lot of great episodes. A lot of, and this is the thing about it. It's not just about the acting for me. It's not just about the writing for me. It's about, a lot of it is to do with the action, because that to me is what I love about Star Trek the most, is the action. So we have fights with the Klingons, fights with the Borg, fights with the Dominion, fights with the Romulans. There's so much more to come. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's gonna be fantastic. And like I said, if you want to know where we're going next, well, just strap yourself in, because holy fucking god, we have quite an exciting quintet. That's the word I'm thinking of for you. So if you thought like our latest kind of like, run of episodes were a bit kind of like dark and depressing and a bit like, unsettling and a bit anxiety inducing, yeah, well, you're not going to enjoy the next 5, I'll be honest with you. It's not going to get any fucking better, because as we said, we always use the 5th of our kind of run of 10 episodes as a pivot from one's kind of set of storylines to the other. So all those who wonder, does qualify as a kind of a horror episode, but it is also about a conflict, and it's about a war. It's about a fight between humans and another race, or 2 races in particular, because we like to stretch our interpretations a little bit to suit our narrative, much like every colonial country, I suppose, appropriate considering who we're going to be playing about next. So the next 5 episodes are all about conflicts, all about wars, all about things that humanity has had to deal with over the many centuries of Star Trek lore. So we'll start off by saying that the next episode we're going to be doing is going back into Voyager, because Voyager we're not left alone in the Delta Quadrant, and we're excited enough, we are resisting our urge to talk about the Borg when it comes to Voyager, and just about this next few episodes generally, because we have done quite a lot of Borg, has to be said. And I think perhaps doing a Borg arc is probably not outside of the question, really. So for the Voyagers episode, we're going to be talking about the episode State of Flux, which is, I suppose, the kind of the centerpiece of the Kazon arc that Voyager encountered over the few seasons. So this is, I think, at the end of, say, the double header basics, which was obviously when the Kazon took over Voyager and left them stranded on the ship. So that's already been done. We already had Seska being revealed as a Cardassian and betraying the crew and all this sort of stuff. So State of Flux is essentially the actually, I beg your pardon, State of Flux is the episode about Seska, if I'm actually remembering correctly. Basics is the 2-part that ends the saga, so I was getting myself mixed up there. Because again, we only got space for 2-parter here, and Jerry's already fucking bagsy that. So State of Flux is essentially the turning point episode with the Kazon. So we'll go from there with that one. Next up then is from Enterprise. And again, another one that is very much a turning point for the series. The first time, but their first kind of long form story that they tell in Enterprise, and that is The Expanse. This is the episode where they well, they say confront, but they start off their confrontation with the Zindi. So again, considering the time at which the episode was made and the subject matter, which we will all delve into when it's time, certainly it's a quite a raw episode in many categories. So we will be discussing the Expanse when it is time. Then we move on then to episode 38. Now we're breaking our rule a little bit in terms of these arcs by normally we tend to don't not favor one series in particular when it comes to these arcs. Because usually we do okay, if we've done one episode from this show, we tend to leave the next one to last. But we are breaking a rule a little bit here because there are 2 DS9 episodes in this arc, and the first one we're going to be doing is Duet, which is another season 1 edition of Deep Space Nine. And for me personally, I think it's the best episode of the first season. I'm after watching it back recently, and I think it's an absolute phenomenal episode. It's not it's not an action-packed episode. It's not a particularly kind of a signifying episode, but it is just a great calibration for where we're at in terms of the Bajoran-Cardassian conflict, and just some remarkable acting and remarkable writing. Just sets the stage for us really about what happened with the Bajorans and Cardassians.
Such a good episode.
Yeah. And believe me, if you think we're fucking narky about the social commentary, wait till you get to that fucking episode, because my god, there's some real serious real life comparisons there. So then again, it doesn't get any easier from there, because then episode 39 is The Wounded from The Next Generation. And again, reopening old wounds is exactly what this episode does, because this will be talking about the off-screen, never mentioned human Cardassian war, and I think it holds a very special place in our hearts, as it were, because this is really the first Chief O'Brien episode that we get. Whether you kind of consider it to be it's a reward for Colin Meaney for showing up on set so many times just to say 1 or 2 lines, I don't know. Either way, they struck gold with him here, because my goodness, what an absolutely incredible episode.
Yeah.
And it's one of those ones where I think if we weren't doing an arc about kind of war type episodes, I'd be doing an arc about underrated episodes, and this would be top of my list, because this is, I think, one of the most underrated episodes of Star Trek out there. And when you watch it back and you realize what's going on and what they're talking about and where we go from here, because this is the first Cardassian episode. This is the first time we see them in the flesh, and Mark Alamo and his fucking weird scaly neck. This is the first time we get any of this. So this is a massive episode in the run of Star Trek, and no doubt we'll be picking it apart from that point on. But then, Jerry, we come to the main event, episode 40, and when we're talking about conflicts and we're talking about what humans have had to deal with over the centuries, we literally could not forget the Klingons. And instead of going to the original series and going with what was, let's be fair, racist caricatures, we're not doing that. However, we are going to see Klingons in their purest form when they're on Deep Space Nine. And we are going to be doing the 2-parter, The Way of the Warrior, which, Jerry, this is an episode you've been sitting on since the start of the show. I was able to I broke with yesterday's Enterprise and said, right, this is mine, this is what I think is the best episode ever made.
Yeah.
And now we are going to see if Way of the Warrior succeeds yesterday's Enterprise in that regard.
You see, In the Pale Moonlight was mine.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's been beaten, so it was drawing, it was a draw, and then it got beaten, but it got beaten by what, 3.5 points?
4.5 points, yeah.
3.5 points. So for me, if there's any singular or double or whatever episode you want to choose, there's any episode in Star Trek that could potentially challenge yesterday's Enterprise. Because let's be honest, yesterday's Enterprise is still one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
If there's any episode that could potentially challenge it, it is The Way of the Warrior, because for me, the money was there. They said, right, this is the season 4 premiere. We need to do something big. The money was there. The effects are there. Acting is there. The writing is there. The consequences are there. The music is there. And that's a big one for me. The scenes are there. Oh, baby. Woo-hoo.
Yeah.
I see lots of 10s. I see lots of 10s.
So we are on the warrior arc here, and this is the way to the warriors, if you will. And yeah, strap yourselves in, lads, because the next 5 episodes are gonna be absolute fucking bangers. It's all bangers from here on out, lads. We're not taking an easy step here, because once we're done this arc, we've got another set to go. And my goodness, we're gonna try and top warrior the warrior if we can. I don't think we could, but we will try nonetheless. So until then, thank you all very much for watching, and as always, I will defer to my co-host here because you're the more popular of the two of us. And now, since obviously this episode has gone out, we've had Dublin Comic Con. You've had a lovely time. Obviously, plans have changed a little bit because we had a few cancellations in between. But you, sir, had a lovely conversation with Robert Picardo up on stage, which was, I think, one thing ticked off the bucket list, to say the least. Now, not the only person you had a conversation with over one, but obviously in relevance to the show, certainly the most that we'll be talking about here.
Yeah, well, obviously, when it comes, we review Star Trek shows. So for me to sit down with an original Voyager actor and somebody who so incredibly nice, I think a lot of people were kind of saying he's a little bit quiet, or he's a little bit. Some people said to me, "Geez, no, he didn't really say much." I'm like, God, I said he was talking to me backstage, and because we had a chat before, obviously, going on stage and chatting away. And something that really struck me when he was on stage, and he said something that his daughter had said to him. I'm like, that's why he does tend to have kind of it's not a standoffish face. It's like his daughter described it as his resting bitch face.
Yeah,
and it's essentially he's not angry, he's not excited. It's just the way his face is. So I can attest to you that this man is an absolute diamond. And the reason I say that is that a very, very good friend, my best friend, in fact, recently lost his mother. And he's a huge Star Trek fan like myself. So I asked Robert, would he please record something to kind of boost my friend's spirits after his mother died? So he did a video for me that it couldn't be shared on social media or anything like that. This was purely just from my friend. And he gave him advice, shared his own story about his own mother dying, and then insulted him horribly to the point where my friend started crying and then was in floods of tears from laughter because of how good Robert Picardo was. That just is a testament to how good this man is. So if you meet him and he has a resting bitch face on, please don't think it's personal. Don't think it's anything like that. It's just his face. He is one of the nicest guests, probably the nicest guest I've had on stage at Dublin Comic Con. He was an absolute gem, an absolute pleasure to talk to backstage. It's only when you start kind of researching people is, I learned about his Italian background, obviously with the name Picardo, it's Italian, but he loves his double espressos. He loves the traditions of from Italy and whatnot. He loves singing. He loves being an actor. He just loves performing. He is a performer, and he's so nice, so nice. I will say that it's gonna be hard to top him in terms of Star Trek actors. But of course, next year is not too far away.
No, it's not.
It's not too far away. We have Dublin Comic Con come March. New dates are up on the website for March and August of next year for Dublin Comic Con. We have 2 more shows coming next year. I can't get into details of that now, but 2 more shows coming next year from the guys from Dublin Comic Con. I can't confirm when exactly, but I can confirm that even though she cancelled this year because of work commitments, she will be here next year. We will have Kate Mulgrew in Ireland. We will have the captain of Voyager, Captain Janeway, Admiral Janeway, whatever you want to call her. She will be here next year sometime. When that's announced, I couldn't tell you, but she will be here next year, and I'm delighted about that. And I'm not saying anything, no spoilers from me, but we're going to have a few more surprises along the way. That's all you're getting. Yeah, I'm not giving you any more. That's all I'm allowed to say. So you're going to get a few more surprises along the way. But yeah, really looking forward to next year.
Yeah, it's gonna be absolutely tremendous, and like I said, I've met the man myself, Robert Picardo, and totally attest to everything that Jerry has said. An absolute gent. I kind of like by the time I got to him, I think he was a bit on the clock, so I didn't really have that much time with him. So he was. I think he was a little bit tight. It's very fucking draining having to listen to
Yeah.
fucking soppy cunts like me every day. So I can understand that. I don't know how these people do it. Honestly, like my social battery would be gone after fucking 10 minutes. But this is why they get paid, and I don't. So it is what it is. But look, like I said, I really enjoyed the panel with you and Robert, and again, we went to a couple of panels with yourself as well. So shout out to Jeff Terravine, and you just had a great chat with him. Kind of out of nothing in the sense where like you were kind of like like not necessarily like like we like knew him from Star Trek or anything like that, or knew him from his work, but like just immediately fucking sparked. I was like, oh, there you go, common interests. Holy shit, let's just have a chat for an hour. And you really fucking did. It was great. I really enjoyed that panel. Like I've actually
Great chat.
Yeah.
There are times where you're like, okay, do I have enough to talk about? Do we have enough
Yeah.
to talk about? Obviously the actors and the voice actors and the performers that are there, they have enough to talk about, but do I have enough to ask them?
Yes.
And what I didn't realize is that the talk I had with him, and then the second talk I had with him the next day with another voice actor whose name escapes me right now.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, but we actually went overtime on both. Now, I don't generally do that. I try not to do that because we need to prepare. The next person coming out needs to prepare and whatnot, and the
Sure.
actors need to prepare and whatever else. So I went over both times, and I was so happy that I did, because at the end of the day, we were just having a conversation, and I like getting feedback from the guests. So when I go backstage, I asked him, how was that? He was like, that was great. It was a chat. It wasn't just like, it wasn't real monotonous. Like, here's question 1, 2, and 3, which was like, so how are things? How are you? Like in Ireland, blah blah blah. That's how I like to do it. I kind of like to start off. Is this your first trip here? If not, what have you been doing? Tell us a bit about your trip, and then I like to end on your field. Voice acting, whatever it may be. What advice would you have for people? It's the same 2 questions I ask, the start and the finish. I always start it and finish it the same way. And I think sometimes it throws people off. And I kind of like to do that because they're prepared for certain questions. So when they don't get the questions they're prepared for, they're like, oh, okay, this is different. I like this. And it turns into like that. So I'm hoping that when it comes to Kate Mulgrew next year, I can surprise her a little bit, and we can have a nice little chat. I think we'll have I think by the time she comes here, we're going to have a lot more to talk about, because I feel there is something in the wind. There is something coming. She recently did an interview where she said she was sitting down for dinner with Alex Kurtzman, who is the showrunner of Star Trek now. So that has to mean something.
I think so.
And the fact that Alex Kurtzman has nothing to do with Prodigy now, that has to mean something. So there's something in the wind, whether it's a Star Trek Legacy, Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Janeway, whatever it may be. There's something in the wind. So I think we're going to have a lot to talk about come next year.
I think so, absolutely, and I look forward to it. I really, really do. So until then, guys, that's all we have time for here. So we're going to leave it here for tonight. Again, if you agree with our score for All Those Who Wander, by all means, let us know. If you do not in the comments, or if you do, if you want to supplement our points, we'd love to hear from you below the line, and give us suggestions for episodes for our next arcs. Because again, we do have a couple more to go, but then we'll be starting off from scratch then after the Way of the Warrior. And believe me, we'll need fucking ideas. We're going to try and top that if it ends up usurping yesterday's Enterprise and on top spot. So by all means, let us know what you'd like to see from us here on the show, and we will certainly consider it on our part. But for now, guys, thank you very much for joining us. By all means, subscribe to us here on Nerds Roast for more of the same. We do these episodes as basically as often as we can, every couple of weeks when we are both available. We have plenty of other stuff on the channel for you to enjoy, especially if you're into your wrestling, if you're not, if you have your football, if you have your games. We have something for everybody, and movies, and comics, and books. We've got fucking everything on this channel. We really are a hodgepodge of a whole lot of things. So by all means, subscribe to us and click the bell. Best way to keep in touch of everything that we're going to be uploading over the next few weeks and months. But until then, guys, thank you very much for your time and your custom, and we'll see you next time on the show in the only way we know how.